Hello, I am Joel McLeod.
And I'm Roland Tanner.
And welcome to the 905er. Last year, one of the biggest stories we focused on was that of the Halton Catholic School Board's debate on raising the pride flag during Pride Month in June at its schools. As listeners of this podcast know all too well, the discussion degenerated into a very divisive debate, and the end result of which was the board deciding ultimately not to raise the flag at its schools. The issue also brought national attention to the Halton Catholic School Board, with many critics questioning why one specific religion in a multicultural society such as Canada should get public tax dollars to fund an education system just for itself, especially if it is not in line with the majority of Canadian public opinion. It even caught the attention of the Ontario Human Rights Tribunal and raised the question if the board was in violation of the rights of its LGBTQ students. The issue ultimately has created a movement in the board of progressive staff, students, and parents coming together to advocate for more LGBTQ inclusivity in the board, amongst other issues. Since then, the debate has proven to be a catalyst to bring to light much dysfunction that exists at the board table. Many meetings since then have degenerated into contests of personality, with agendas not being accomplished. A third party went so far as to mark some of the behavior of its trustees as quote-unquote dilatory, which has led to much acrimony that exists now around the board table. In light of all of this, one would think that the board would want to put behind itself the issue of pride flag being raised at its schools. However, that is not the case of the original proponent for the policy, Trustee Brenda Agnew. Trustee Agnew is once again introducing her proposal to raise the pride flag at Halton Catholic schools during this year's Pride Month. The decision to go ahead or not with the policy will be made tonight, Tuesday, January 18th, at the board's monthly meeting. Trustee Agnew is a parent of 2 children in the Halton Catholic school system. Her youngest son has cerebral palsy and is a student in the system with special needs. She currently sits on the HCDSB Special Education Advisory Committee and advocates for the needs of special needs students at the board level. She is currently one of the trustees for Burlington, and today she joins us to discuss her reasoning as to why she's reintroducing this motion. But before we begin, we'd like you to please consider supporting us on Patreon or through Buy Me a Coffee. Your contribution will go a long way to helping us tell stories like this that are so important to the 905 region. Just a small amount of $5 can go a long way to making a big impact. Please consider supporting us today. Links are in the show notes. Now, on with the show. Okay, I would like to welcome to the podcast Trustee Brenda Agnew to the 905er. Brenda, thank you for taking the time to come on today.
Oh, thanks for having me. I was saying earlier, you've got a great podcast. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you very much. That's all we needed from you. Good night. Good luck.
Yeah, I'm out.
So the reason why we wanted to have you on Brenda, is because you are bringing back the pride flag debate to the Halton Catholic District School Board for another crack at the can, so to speak. Why don't we rewind the tape to about a year ago? And the first time you brought this forward to the board, tell us your mind back then. Like, why bring it forward? What was your thinking, and what was your expectation at the time for that move?
Absolutely. So, I feel like so much has happened since then. I'll try to recount it. But, I've always been, for anyone that knows me, I've always been a huge proponent of inclusion and belonging and diversity and accepting others for who they are and celebrating differences. And, I've always had friends that have been a part of the LGBTQ plus community. And it's just something that, I've known for a number of years. And, I would see during the month of June, I would see, the beautiful flags flying at, corporate locations and at our coterminous board. And it just, that was sort of, the initial outside glance at things is, you'd see the celebration again of all things that were diverse and again, the themes of love and kindness and so, I did a little bit of inquiry why we had never flown the flag at our board, because as you know, I'm a fairly new trustee and I wasn't aware of that. And at around the same time, we started to hear from some students. And I was hearing a lot of anecdotal information from teachers that I know in the system or parents and families I know in the system, but we started to actually hear more students expressing, their desire to see that flag flown, the importance of really, really showing our 2S LGBTQ plus community that they did belong in our Catholic schools and that they were loved and accepted. And so we did have a student that did a delegation, and it never left me. And it sat with me, and I thought, we have to do a little bit better here. We do some great things at our board, but we need to do a little bit better, and we need to do better by this community. And so, in my opinion, I thought, let's put this flag up and let's show outwardly that this is a place of belonging, and that you are accepted. I didn't quite anticipate the backlash. You said, you asked what I thought would happen. I actually thought that, naively or not, I thought the motion would pass. I really did. And as we know, it did not. Something a little different did pass. But I don't think I ever anticipated what transpired after all of that. So,
and just to sort of dive into that point somewhat. I mean, you said you didn't expect quite the level of reaction that you got, so to speak. Now, I guess, to sort of put the argument of the people who voted against, I guess, to put their point of view, they might now be saying, we won that vote. So, why now bring it back so quickly after a previous vote to try again? Is it just a matter of like, hopefully some of them might stay home this time, or more to it?
So, I truly, truly believe, so a couple of reasons for timing, because we know the timing is probably not optimum. And I have thought about that. It's not lost on me that we have all of these things that are going on. But the timing to bring it back again was based on the fact that we had just seen a staff report that had come back based on some of the activities that were implemented after the last motion went into effect. And so, my hope is that over the course of the past year, maybe perhaps some of the trustees who were a little bit uncertain about some of the, maybe some of the understanding behind the flag, some of the education piece, some of the other things that they might have been a little nervous about. Maybe they've seen some things that would make them feel more comfortable or a better sense of understanding that they could support it this time. I think also what's really important of note is the tremendous outpouring of support and love. And I could never have imagined what would have come out of that vote. And perhaps that was, a little bit that maybe some trustees will look at, that they will consider what we heard from schools and staff and students after the last vote. And that's why I brought it back at the time I did.
When that vote happened, I remember we were covering it. It's one of the first big stories that we did cover. There seemed to be a little bit of hesitation on the part of some trustees. There's a we don't, we're not sure. Let's find a cautious middle ground to try to accommodate all sides here. And I'm going to go on a limb and say that didn't really work out. What shocked me though was the number of schools in the board who, I'm going to say, within 48 hours had put out some kind of LGBTQ plus positive messaging on their social media channels. School councils, parent-driven school councils were posting, some kind of inclusionary messaging to the LGBTQ plus community in the Halton Catholic School Board, saying, we want you in our schools. We know you're here. We know you're part of it. You're welcome here. These are may not be officially safe school policy, but we're going to try and make it such. What do you take away from that as a trustee? That was that a case of the board not really reading the room, like not really seeing what the reality was on the ground?
That's a great question. I mean, I actually, I think, Joel, that because it had never really been something that had been a part of a discussion or had never been, we did see discussions around the GSAs, right? The Gay Straight Alliances that had come to our board. But, I don't know that there had ever been conversations and discussions on a grand level about the importance of supporting, members of our 2S LGBTQ plus community. And so I don't really know if people were aware of how how important that was to our school communities. And I don't know if they knew, people may not have been aware of how prevalent, some staff and students identify with that community. And so, I don't know if it was not reading the room. I don't know if it was maybe an assumption based on some arguments we've heard, right, from our, Catholic teachings. Maybe there was an assumption that this isn't something that is supported out there. I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know what. Yeah, I don't know.
This has been somewhat of a kind of contentious board since 2018. In any case, hasn't it? I mean, we've spoken to the board chair, Patrick O'Brien. Patrick, forgive me if I get names wrong, but Patrick Murphy. Murphy, I'm so sorry, Patrick.
Okay, it's Irish.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm quarter Irish myself. I should know better. But it's been quite a contentious board with somewhat of a divide between a kind of more progressive side and a side that seems very much very willing to use whatever tools are available at their disposal to get in the way of some arguably progressive policies, not necessarily to vote against them, but to prevent them ever reaching the point of a vote, which is kind of what happened last year with your initial motion, if I understand correctly. Right. Do you see, has there been any change since that report came in? I think it was in the sort of late summer last year, in the behavior of the, I'm not asking you to talk about your colleagues necessarily, but has there been a general change in tone at all that suggests that this might be a more optimistic time for
this motion?
Yeah.
Now the report you're referring to, Roland, is that the code of conduct report that came in, or so code of conduct, as opposed to the, I don't know. It's another great question. I think, I'm being optimistic that there is a will for us to come together as a group and in what could be the final year of a number of, trustees, perhaps, serving on the board of trustees. It would be nice to see us come together on some of these matters. I would hope again that, there's a lot of talk often about listening to the voices of our community, recognizing their wants and needs and desires, and acting accordingly to that. My hope would be is that everything that we've seen, again, since the vote last year, may give a strong indication that this is something that our schools want to see, that our families and students and staff want to see. But yeah, again, I can't speak for other trustees. I know that when I go in to our meetings, I go in with the absolute hope that we're going to get through an agenda, that we're going to make some strong and positive decisions for our staff and our students and our families, that we're going to keep them first and foremost. I wish we could come together more. I really do, because there's so much great work that could continue to happen, and we just seem to stumble over it at times. And I don't know if that report will make a difference or not, because we actually haven't even discussed it at the board table. It keeps not getting around to it because we never get through an agenda. So it's been hard to even have the conversation.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question or not, but that.
No, where it speaks to the problems that have existed, kind of long term now, certainly since 2018. I was wondering. Well,
I remember back when the Halton Catholic Board brought this up, and it was on the agenda, on the table, and it kind of, I believe the Waterloo Catholic Board had put. They didn't have the debate. They just decided we're just going to do this. But you kind of kicked off a trend, so to speak, in other Catholic boards around the province, not just in the 905, but Thunder Bay, I believe, and a few others that started to mull this over. And then, of course, I thought a big one was the Toronto Catholic School Board, District School Board was brought forward. And what I thought was interesting is most of these past motions, I think Halton is the only one, Halton and maybe one other, are the only ones that actively said no.
Right.
Do you take this as kind of a black eye on the reputation of the Halton Catholic District School Board, that you're kind of standing alone here in decisions on this issue?
So I've given this lots of thought because I have to say how excited and how thrilled I was to see the other boards passing, to passing those motion and seeing those flags flown. And I know that TCDSB had done a lot of work leading up to that. I'm not going to lie. I think a lot of the press and a lot of the attention that happened on the Halton Catholic Board perhaps may have tipped the scales. I'm assuming. But, I was so proud and I was so excited to see that happen. But at the same time, there was, I was filled with some sadness because it was nice to see that some positive action had happened as a result of what had transpired at our board. But it obviously left me feeling quite sad that we weren't able to do it at our board. I've certainly have heard from other trustees, from other boards, who have said it's a disappointment. It's disappointing to know that was the way that, the vote went, and have been asking repeatedly if we think that's ever going to change. So, yeah, I don't know, black eye, I think definitely some frustration and some, some disappointment, if you will, that, we kicked this all off and yet we couldn't get the flag flown ourselves.
That being said, this debate and the fact that the flag isn't flying over Halton Catholic schools did get you a lot of negative press, not just in the 905, but across the entire province, dare say it, across the country. There's a lot of questions. You kind of became a focal point on the debate over Catholic education in the province. Like, there are a lot of people who are asking the question of, why do we need a Catholic school board in the province when, for the vast majority of Ontarians, the issue of flying the pride flag in the month of June is a non-issue. It's just, put it up. It should be up for 1 month in the school year. Why not? It really is a non-issue, but this debate made it. So a lot of people say, well, why do we even have to have a separate school system for one religion? As a Catholic trustee, I'm going to throw it out to you and kind of respond back to that.
Yeah. This is why I was nervous, Joel. No, I'm kidding. I certainly could spend some time extolling the virtues, of the Catholic school system. I'm obviously a strong supporter. I wouldn't be a trustee in the system. I truly believe the quality of the education that we do provide, and there's so many great things that we do as a Catholic board. I'm really, really proud of them, and I'm proud of the messaging that we send to our students. I'm proud of the curriculum. I am. There's a lot of things I'm really, really proud of, I did worry. I'm not going to lie. Worry, when this all happened, to your point, it starts the conversation about, should we have one single system? I don't personally believe we should. Again, I'm a huge supporter of the Catholic school system. I'm a product of it. My kids are enrolled. I believe a lot of really great things that we do, but I'm also conscientious that when something like this comes up, it does start those conversations. So then I think to myself, do I do that and bring on that negative spotlight, or do I not and leave it the way it is? But then that's not okay either. So it's I understand why people are saying that. I do. I understand it's been something that's come around for a long time. And unfortunately, when issues come up at the table that seem to be impeded because of religious reasons, that makes it, that makes the discussion stronger about only having one system. And that really is unfortunate. And that's another reason why I say we need to be a little bit more progressive. The reality is that we have students in our system who are not Catholic. They have chosen to direct their tax dollars to us. They've chosen to have us, as the vessel to provide education to their children. We have to remember that, and we have to be responsive to, all students and not just some students. So I think, that's where some of these conversations I think belong and that's where that progressive piece I think comes from. You need to stay relevant, right? In my opinion,
trying here very much to make sure that we at least that we represent the point of view of the other side of it, so to speak. Which I'm not neither was I brought up Roman Catholic, neither am I particularly religious at all. But I guess the opposing point of view And actually, ironically, both my mother and my sister were educated for parts of their sort of childhoods at convent schools, publicly owned convent schools. And I guess, probably their parents or my parents, my mother's parents, thought at that time, was like, well, this is a school we think is good, therefore we're going to send our child there. The fact that this is not our religion and we don't necessarily endorse, ironically, my grandmother grew up in Northern Ireland and was Protestant. Sending her child to a convent school was it was quite controversial, believe me. But it was like, we want the quality of the school and we're willing to accept the religious aspect as the price that comes with that. Right. Could one not say now, well, if you're going to a Catholic school, the Catholic Church still is, let's say, far from unanimous on the subject of sexuality and gender and morality and issues such as that. For better or worse, that's the
what
case.
It is. Yep.
Shut up and accept it. That's part of the price of going to a Catholic school. Do you think there's any validity to that argument?
So maybe years ago, I personally don't think there's validity to that argument now. We've seen a lot change, and I get upset too, because there's always this inference that, if people support, non-Catholics in certain positions, or they support 2S LGBTQ+, that infers that we're not good Catholics and we're not faithful to our religion. And I don't look at it like that. I really don't. And so, I don't think it should be a put up or shut up to come to our schools. It should be, again, it should be welcoming of all voices and all opinions. And I think we need to recognize that. That's what makes us, that's what makes us great, right? Is all the different parts and pieces that come together. And especially now in today's day and age, I don't think you can ask anyone to just come in and participate and, and take it for what it is. I could go down the whole route of talking about the catechism and talking about the teachings, but we've even seen the teaching of we've seen the teachings coming out of the Pope that have, been different and reactive to what's going on right now. And I think it's really important that this is no one's trying to make a threat against the Catholic faith. I'm proud to be a Catholic, but why can't I be a Catholic and be supportive of everybody that's out there? That's the way that I was taught. That's the way that I learned. That's the way that I interpret my faith is to be accepting of all. And I think if you come into our Catholic schools, regardless if you're Catholic or not, your voice is just as important, and your sense of belonging should be just as important. And I don't think it should be forced down anybody's throats. If that's, sorry, that sounds probably a little bit strong, but I don't think that it should be.
What would happen? This episode is going to air the date of your meeting. So flash forward, I guess, tonight, if you will. Say we have a repeat of what happened the last time. What do you think is going to happen if this motion does not pass? If either A, completely fails again, your entire debate is caught up in the going back and forth like it did last time, and it fails, or what do you think? What do you think the consequences of that would be for your board and going forward?
So I think, first of all, I really truly hope that it doesn't go back and forth with a lot of amendments or a lot of changes or a lot of procedural things. I truly sort of believe if you believe in the motion on the table, then support it. If you don't, then don't support it. And you'll have your reasons for doing one or the other. I think a lot of the problem that I think came out of last time and why it was so negative, it wasn't even so much, to be honest, I don't think the outcome of the vote, because we did a lot of great things, even out of that amended motion. I believe a lot of it was just because of those constant amendments and the procedural things that transpired. And that just made it very, very difficult, right, for the people that were participating. So I'm hopeful we don't go down that same route. That would be a great outcome. As far as the vote itself, and this was another thing I was very fearful of, and I'll be honest with you, I'll be honest with everyone, everyone is talking. When I brought this forward, I was fearful that if it doesn't pass again, the members of that community who felt so dejected and so unwelcomed and so unloved and so unsupported after the immediate vote, I'm fearful that they're going to have those same feelings again should this vote not go that way. And I've reached out to several people to say, I want you to know that you're still loved and supported, and we're doing the best that we can to show you that. So I do worry about that. There's a lot of not nice things, if you will, that get said through some different mechanisms, differing opinions. I think I don't know, if it doesn't fly this time, if the motion doesn't pass, is it going to be you know what? We never thought they would anyways. It might be that. It might be more than that. I don't know. I don't know what people are resigned to. I don't know if they just think we're never going to pass something like that. So why are we even bother trying? Or if it doesn't pass, are they going to be angrier? I don't know.
I mean, I'll just just share what I said in actually our last episode, just my sort of take on it for what it's worth.
Yes.
Is that, this motion will pass sooner or later. It's either going to pass next week, or in 6 months, or in a year under a different group of trustees, or in 2 years or 3. But soon, and I would say sooner rather than later, between a week and a year, this is going to pass, and these flags will fly.
Okay.
And I kind of gave semi-humorously, I guess, my advice to the trustees who voted differently last time, or voted against the proposal last time, or the motion, stood in the way of the motion, I should say more accurately. That the smart thing to do here is and the way to keep yourself out of the news is to vote for this. It's an election year. It's all very well to say, well, there's strong opinions on both sides. Yes, obviously there is. Yeah. But it seems to me that the weight of public opinion is fairly heavily on one side of this argument, and that would be your side. Do you think there's any truth in my poorly informed opinions?
I hope you're right. I hope if it doesn't pass this time, although I hope it does, I hope it doesn't pass this time, it will, someone, whether it's me or someone else, will continue, because sometimes things are not. Listen, I have a child with a disability. I've lived that life for 14 years. You're not always going to make change right away. It's not always going to happen. It may take a couple of kicks at the can. And you sometimes have to assess what you're willing to continue to fight for and what you're not. I would hope if it doesn't pass, this next meeting, that someone else passes it at some point. And the question around the public pressure, and that, I don't know, because I also get accused, right? I get accused of bringing this forward for public pressure. I'm a leftist. I'm woke. I'm a woke leftist. I don't know. You know what that means. I'm a woke leftist. I'm a virtue signaler. I'm not. I'm a kind person who loves everyone and wants to have this sense of belonging. And so I try not to bring that political piece to the table at all. But again, someone might argue that I'm bowing under pressure. Someone may say the same thing with respect to the other trustees and perhaps, what they're hearing from the people that they speak with. So I don't know. I think the trustees who will vote on this matter will do so because of how they believe, how they believe that this motion should go. And I think that will be the end of it, regardless of what's being said out in public. If I'm being honest, I think they will they have their reasons, they have their people that they've spoken to, and they will vote according to that.
I have 2 points. So bear with me. One, I'm wondering, well, there's a question over who has authority over these schools. Is it church doctrine, or is the public taxpayer? Because there are people who believe these are publicly funded schools. They're coming out of public coffers. Therefore, they are accountable. You are accountable to the public, all of us, regardless. Not just, the in theory, the Pope can't come in and walk into Queen's Park and say, okay, Catholic schools, this is what we're going to do with them. We're going to do A, B, C, and D. This is my plan. Carry it out. It doesn't work like that. And that was more just an opinion than a question, because I don't that's the one thing I think people need to keep in mind in this debate, is that they are publicly funded. They are owned by not just Catholics in the school, in the province, but they are owned by everyone. And if you pay taxes in the province of Ontario, these are your schools as well, as much as the public schools are our property as well. So
agree.
Now, a question just popped into my mind as we were talking. This policy that you're proposing is to make it mandatory so that in the month of June, the pride flag is waved at every school in the Halton Catholic School Board. What's stopping a principal from just deciding on their own in the month of June to say, nope, I'm waving the pride flag outside of my school, along with the Canada flag and the province of Ontario flag? Is there anything stopping a principal from saying, I'm just going to include the pride flag up put it at the flagpole on their own volition? Like, they're not, is there any punishment or recourse? They're going to be dragged in front of the board and say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, we're going to have to discipline you because you raised the pride flag?
No. And in fact, one of the things that was brought up in one of the delegations or one of the presentations last time is that we had seen some schools raise the autism awareness flag in April, right? April's Autism Awareness Month, and they had flown the flag at their school. And much like there's some schools that celebrate Down syndrome awareness, or they celebrate, I don't want to say celebrate, but there's a cancer awareness, or there's something that's specific to their school community. And so we did see that flag flown in some schools, and they didn't have to ask for it. They just flew the flag because that was an autonomous decision that the principal made, and they can absolutely do that. I mean, we saw last time the flag couldn't, even last time when it didn't fly, principals still could have flown it. But I think in the interest of probably consistency and things like that, is they probably chose not to put their flag up at their individual schools. We did see them inside the schools, however, which was lovely to see. But no, they're I won't say theoretically, policy-wise, procedurally, no, there's nothing stopping a principal. But I think that's a lot of pressure on that principal, and I think that becomes, and then again, it's you may have two schools across the street from each other, both Catholic, and one's flying the flag and one isn't. And I think administrators will be cognizant, perhaps, of that when it comes to this. But yeah, no, there's nothing stopping anybody from putting that up.
Do you feel, I feel quite strongly actually that ultimately issues of, gender and sexuality, these kind of, deeply personal issues have no business being even discussed at a trustee level. Mm-hmm. I don't see it as being part of your job. This is at the very least a provincial responsibility. And that the province at a simple statement from the minister could put this entire debate to bed forever, pretty much. Do you agree with that point of view?
So I think I'll look at it a little different, Roland, in that I don't look at the pride flag as being anything specific to gender or sexuality. And I'm being honest, it's when we talk about pride, sex comes into it. I don't think it should, because that's not what it's about. It's not always about gender. It really is about a sense of belonging. It's about love. It's about, who you are as a person. It's about all of those things. And so that's where could there be an inference that this has crossed the line at the table? Yeah. But then I look at, I was very vocal about implementing International Day of Persons with Disabilities in our board. And we did that for a week long. And by the way, it passed unanimously. And so I was really excited about that. But, it was the same idea. It was it was seeing the differences, but seeing the similarities, recognizing the contributions of, the population of people, awareness, education, starting conversations. And so I look at pride as the same thing. And I've had people come to me and say, well, would you fly the Indigenous flag? Yes, I would. Would you fly a flag of, again, autism awareness, or would you fly? Yes, I would. Absolutely. If it's something that shows an outward symbol to our community that we are here and so I think that I look at it like that. If I truly believed, Roland, that this was a symbol of sexuality or gender, that's a different conversation. I don't look at the pride flag like that. I really don't. I look at it as a symbol of love and acceptance. And I think for that reason, when I put something like this motion down, I really don't consider it to be any different than International Day of Persons with Disabilities or cerebral palsy awareness or any of the other things that we bring forward to make sure that our students and our staff have a sense of belonging.
I should clarify that I think you've got perfect right to do what you're doing. I just think ultimately.
No, it's a great question.
My point is that the province is the better place to do this kind of thing, and that they could make it a non-issue. But
they could make it very easy for us, should they do.
I guess I have one final question. I'm sure Joel has another one, but my final kind of question would be, if there are parents listening who, and I'm thinking specifically of parents and not children, because I suspect the children's point of view is fairly unanimous. But if there are parents who are listening who are like, no, this is nothing to do with education. This is nothing to do, or we're our Catholic faith, as far as we understand it, says that this is not something that we want at our schools for whatever reason. What would you say to them to put their minds at rest?
Well, I think if students are going to learn, listen, these conversations don't always happen at home. I can be guilty of that on some topics. I think if there's going to be conversations, or they're great conversations to have at school. I mean, our educators are, this is what they do. They're well, experienced to have these types of conversations, to navigate this conversation. I think it's a wonderful place to start conversations and have awareness. And so I actually think there's going to be things that our children are going to face in the community, right? They're going to face people of different colors and different races and different genders and people in wheelchairs, and all of that stuff's going to happen. And so, I think them being in the schools and having the opportunity to have those conversations and those learnings, I think that's a great place for that to happen, because I think it's going to be valid conversations. It's going to be vetted information. It's going to be in a safe place to have those discussions. So listen, I can't force anybody to be supportive of this or to want to have those conversations with their child. I obviously can't do that, nor do I want to do that. But I just think, our kids, like I said, are going to face so many things out in the outside world. Let's at least make them aware of what they are. Let's help them understand it, and then they can come to their own conclusions later on. But at least we provided them with the tools and resources on some of these topics, so that they can be better informed, I think. That's my thought.
I don't have any other questions. I'm good. Honestly, I see our time is coming up. So I think we're going to, let's wrap it up on that high note. As they say, go out on a closer. So I'd like to thank Trustee Brenda Agnew for coming on the 905er, taking her time from her busy schedule to share her thoughts and her reasoning on why the HCDSB is taking another crack at the can at raising the pride flag in June. So thank you very much, Brenda.
Thanks you guys so much for the conversation. It's been great chatting. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
That's it for this episode of the 905er. Thank you for listening. As always, you can send us your feedback, thoughts, and concerns, or ideas for future episodes to our email, info@905er.ca. We'd love to hear from you. You can help us keep the 905er going by financially supporting us through Patreon as well as PayPal. Visit us at 905er.ca and click on the support tab. As well, links are in the show notes for your convenience. Lastly, you can find us on social media. Search for _905er on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So long for now. See you next time.
Looking to make the most out of this life and optimize your personal wellness? Then check out the Natural Man Podcast. Join me, host Mike C., as we explore all areas of human wellness, physical, mental, and emotional. Learn strategies to optimize your own well-being and be in the driver's seat of your own health. Remember, your doctor works for you. Learn biohacks, neurohacks, ways to improve sleep, and ways to optimize your body and your mind. Check us out on Apple, Spotify, the Fountain app, and at naturalmanpodcast.com.